What's going on, y'all? So hopefully you can hear me now. If you can, fantastic. If not, we'll get it figured out. But tonight on the Mission Ready Men briefing, we have all kinds of chaos going on. Graduation ceremonies are turning into chaotic ghetto block parties, complete with fights and arrests. And teen takeovers are shutting down American cities. And it's become just a nightmare. We got political violence getting downplayed when the victims are of the wrong persuasion, wear the wrong hat. And somehow a former reality star, another former reality star, is making more sense than the political class. So at some point, people are going to stop asking whether or not this is normal and start asking what kind of country actually pretends that this is normal. So let's get after it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
What is going on? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing, right here on the SHR Media Network, where faith in God is the standard and masculinity is celebrated, not toxic. Today is Tuesday, May 26th, in the year of our Lord 2026, and we have a ton of stuff to get into. Before we get started, please hit like and subscribe and share. And if you're in the chat, please comment. We'd love to hear from you. We need to get out from under this big tech tyrants chokehold. They're just trying to smother us, but we're not going to let it happen. And also, this show is on it's on SHR, and it's also on our individual channel. And we are at 996 subscribers over there on the Mission Ready Men briefing channel. So please, if you're not subscribed over there, we would love to hit 1,000 by the end of the show. So please do us a favor and help us out over there. We would really love to get up over 1,000 on that platform as well. All right, we got a ton to get into, and we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. There has been a lot of chaos going on, and this is something that I don't talk about much, and maybe I should talk about it more. But we are being told that there is no such thing as Black fatigue. That people who subscribe to that notion are irrational, racist. We're not understanding of the antisocial behavior that's taking place and has become ubiquitous and impossible to ignore. At some point, we all know that stereotypes have some root in truth. And at some point, we have to stop talking about unfair stereotypes and just start calling it what it is. We have teen takeovers all over the country. Graduation ceremonies descending into just all-out chaos. Parents fist fighting at kindergarten graduation ceremonies. I mean, come on. At a teen takeover in Chicago, 5 police officers were run over by a teenager who I believe he was under the influence. I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, he just plowed into a crowd. 36 shot in Chicago over the Memorial Day weekend, 21 by Saturday morning. Shockingly, though, there were, well, I shouldn't say there were no homicides. The American Pravda, all the outlets are reporting that there were no homicides, but Hey Jackass, which is Chicago's crime stats page, and it's not, I don't think it's not an official Chicago site, obviously, but I've been going to the site for years for stats on Chicago crime and whatnot, and they're reporting there were 2 homicides over the weekend. I think I trust them more than I trust the American Pravda. How about you? But the media then will blame people for being frustrated, blame people for expressing Black fatigue. And of course, you have the left attacking people who use that phrase. I'm sure I'm going to be called a Black white supremacist before this show is even over, if it hasn't happened in the chat already. Or all kinds of Uncle Tom or Step and Fetch It or Uncle Ruckus. You name it, and it's I've been called it, and it's going to happen again if it hasn't happened already today. Anyway, they claim that it's racist for people to be exhausted by this madness, that we're just not understanding of the expression of traditions or whatever nonsense, sociological nonsense they want to throw out there. It's all ridiculous. But people who are just trying to go about their daily lives, regular Americans who see this stuff and don't want any part of it, they're seeing this social collapse happen in real time. All you got to do, turn on the news, head over to Hey Jackass, and you'll see it. You'll see it right there on full display. There's been this trend, and I guess it's been going on for a couple of years, but this year it just hit a fever pitch. But graduations used to be milestones. They used to be a formal acknowledgement of some achievement, and it used to be something that people took seriously and were proud of. And families were proud of their students who were graduating. Now we have fights in the stands. We have these chaotic block party style dances that break out on the floor, sometimes on the stage as they're walking and receiving their diplomas. Parents brawling in front of kids, like I said, at a kindergarten graduation of all places. Come on. We turned graduations into dinner time at a Chipotle in DC. And we're going to get to that in a second. But it's I don't even know how to express the frustration that must come, or that does come with watching this. Here's one of these ridiculous displays. Check this out. I mean, come on. I cannot imagine acting a fool like that at my graduation ceremony. I cannot imagine. I'm 55 years old, and if that happened, I would still be recovering from the whooping that my dad would have put on me. I'm serious, because that's just unacceptable. As my mother used to say, ain't got no home training. That's what that is. There's another one. There's another one. I don't have it ready, but there's another one where there's a kid who's in the midst of this, and he was like the student of the year or something, and all this madness is breaking out around him, and he's just standing there confused, like, what is going on? And the caption on the video says he was student of the year for a reason. He had some home training. But this mentality, for some reason, I want to say I don't know where it comes from, but I do know where it comes from. It comes from kids not having fathers in the home. It comes from kids having kids. I guarantee you half of those kids who were acting that stupid, their mothers were probably 30, 32 years old. Still basically kids themselves, even at that age, especially if those are the kids that they're raising. And so now we got this, we got that graduation nonsense, which is just completely unacceptable behavior. And then we got teen takeovers. And like I mentioned, the Chicago police officers that were run over by one of the thugs during a teen takeover. It's happening in Chicago, DC, Atlanta, Rochester, New York, Milwaukee. You name it, and it's happening. This was a scene in Navy Yard, DC, at a Chipotle, and I struggle to articulate and come up with explanations for how this happens, because I grew up with some wild kids. I had my share of adventures, to say the least. But I just can't imagine this. It just doesn't compute for me. So let's take a look at this madness. And this family over here just under siege. This is madness, utter madness. These kids, they get on social media and they organize this thuggery on TikTok and other social media platforms, probably mostly TikTok. And then they flood. Team takeover. They just take over these public spaces. Businesses have to shut down. The police are overwhelmed. Officers get assaulted, run over, like I mentioned in Chicago. Families avoid going to these places. This family in this DC Chipotle, I'm sure they wish they were anyplace else but there. And when you see it, and obviously you notice the race of the kids who are committing this stuff. And how can you not, when you see this repeatedly, day after day, month after month, year after year, and you see the negative effect that it has on cities, how can you not have Black fatigue? How can you not? I have Black fatigue. I hate seeing this. And it wouldn't matter. And I know that it does happen in some cases in white areas with white teens, but not to anywhere near the frequency that it happens in these other areas with these other kids. And because people don't want to use the term Black fatigue and don't want to get vilified for using it, we're being told, A, don't do it because you're a racist, or B, don't believe it because it's not really happening. It happens so infrequently that it's not statistically significant, and it's only because of social media that we even see it. Come on. That's ridiculous on its face. And so if you acknowledge it, you're racist, you're biased, you're bigoted, you're reactionary, you're pick a negative adjective, and that's how they're going to describe you. But because of social media, people are starting to notice and recognize these patterns that have emerged. Because when every public gathering, when every large gathering descends into chaos, people are going to notice, and they're going to stop going along with this notion that it's an isolated incident. The American Pravda and the leftist establishment and the apologists for this behavior want to use this euphemistic sociological language to explain it away. But average citizens just want order. They just want public order. They want to feel safe when they go into a restaurant and not have to wonder whether or not today is going to be the day of a teen takeover. That results in chairs flying and having to shield your kids from this madness. The problem, well, the very underlying problem is that these people need Jesus. That would solve a multitude of these issues. But aside from that, there's just no standards. And of course, if people were raised to follow Jesus and worship the Lord, well, obviously those standards would follow. Those would be the result. But even leaving that aside, there's just no one in these kids' lives to set boundaries and establish standards. And so they just do whatever they want. And by the time the cops need to step in, it's too late. It is entirely too late. Because by the time the cops have to enforce the rules, these kids don't care. Because they know if they get locked up, there is a near certainty that they're going to be out before the cops are done with their report. The politicians, the city officials, whatever, they don't want to be labeled as racist or bigots. The schools don't want to discipline these kids. The cities don't want to run the risk of being sued for actually enforcing the law. And so the disorder just compounds. Disorder upon disorder upon disorder. There's no sense of shame anymore in any walk of life. There used to be some standards. There used to be some level of shame that people would feel when they engage in behavior that doesn't meet the standards that society set. Those standards are gone. And so these teen takeovers are just the natural progression of that lack of standard. And because these kids don't have any standards being imposed on them, when they get together in these large crowds, it's just mob behavior, a mob mentality. And in mobs, people get hurt, and we've seen it happen already. And they want to try to explain it away as Black culture, whether it's the large gatherings or the ridiculous dancing at these graduations. That's not culture. That's not anyone's culture. That's just chaos. And when you get attacked for criticizing it, people notice that. And that's where the term and the idea of Black fatigue sets in. Because people who criticize it are getting attacked, but the people who actually engage in this antisocial behavior get coddled and told that it's okay. So it's not hatred, it's exhaustion. Hence the term fatigue. People are just tired of it. And if you're not allowed to criticize it, if you're not allowed to talk about it in any meaningful way, the problem doesn't get fixed. If you can't acknowledge a problem, you can't fix it. So the chaos that people are tired of, it's not hate. It's not hate because of race anyway. They hate the chaos because a functioning society requires order. And when more time and effort is put into policing language around this stuff, eventually people just stop listening. And the people, the elites, they just defend the madness. We're constantly being told not to believe our lying eyes, and people are sick of it. People are just sick of it. All right, y'all. We're going to get into some other. We're actually going to talk about something that happened out in California, a tragic incident that we'll get to. But first, I want to get a word in from our sponsor, and our sponsor for today's show is the SHR Media Shop. So if you've been thinking about grabbing some SHR merch, now is the time. Head over to the SHR shop and check out all those designs and use the code SHR25 for 25% off all merchandise in the shop. The shirts, the mug, the limited edition 250 reasons to read source documents tees are all available now with the discount code of SHR25, and you get 25% off all of it. So please, head over there, rep the network, support independent media, and save 25% with the code SHR25. All right. So we've talked about political violence quite a bit. And political violence, we talked about how it gets treated and reported differently depending on who the victims are. And just like with the previous segment, people notice. And it's a double standard that people are just tired of. And let's see. I'm still not going to show you the pictures, but we talked about last time we were together in San Diego, in Escondido. There's the famous Trump house, and the owner of that home, Kerry Sharon, was beaten mercilessly, and he has passed away from his injuries. He was a 69-year-old veteran attacked right outside his own home because now officials have not come out and actually said what the motive is, but witnesses say that it was politically motivated, and it's kind of obvious. The house is famous for a bunch of American flags, a bunch of Trump banners, patriotic memorabilia all over the place. Some people would probably say it's borderline obnoxious, but it's his home. He can do what he wants. And last week, somebody walked up to him and, according to witnesses, just punched him in the face. And he went down, hit his head, and the assailant continued to pummel him. And when I was when I was looking for stories to read on this and research it, there weren't a lot. There was some on Town Hall, some on Breitbart. When it first happened on Ground News, you can see where the coverage is. There were, I think, 13 stories, all of them basically saying the same thing, but only 2 were from center or left-leaning outlets. All the rest of the stories were from conservative outlets. And the only reason you see any on on NBC is because it's the local NBC affiliate in the area that reported on it. It's not an MSNBC or BS Now, I guess you call it. It's not on CNN. The local affiliates, I'm not even sure if the CBS affiliate ran anything on it. I saw one story from the ABC affiliate out there, but that was it. Everything else was from national outlets like Town Hall, Breitbart. Just they treat it on the left as just a curiosity, a local story. But imagine, and I hate doing this because it sounds so cliche, but it has to be done, because just imagine if somebody had festooned their house with all kinds of pride, LGB, trans, all the pedo flag. Just imagine if somebody's house was covered in all of that stuff. And someone, a mentally deranged person, just came up and just started beating on the owner. Even let's tone it down. Let's just say somebody came up and just punched the owner a couple of times and didn't beat them to within an inch of their lives, just assaulted them. It would be national news. They would have news crews posted up 24/7. Still to this day, it's been about a week since the original assault happened. Carrie Sharon passed away yesterday on Memorial Day. But just imagine if the reverse had taken place. They would be calling it a hate crime. There would have been a nationwide manhunt for the assailant. They would be parading this person around in cuffs as they vilified this person. I'm not saying that they wouldn't deserve to have that happen to them, but it would be a national story. You know it, I know it, and everyone else knows it. This man was like I said, he was a veteran, openly patriotic, obviously, openly pro-Trump. He'd had complaints about the house for years, and he's had it vandalized before. And he didn't complain. He just repaired the damage, replaced the flags and whatnot. and kept it going. People have confronted him in the past, and he's like, they have a right to their opinion, just like I have a right to mine. And he kept it moving. He wasn't bitter about it. He was a patriot, and he felt that people had a right to object, but he also had a right to do what he was doing. But then the assault happens, and now he's gone. And the outlets that have, the left-leaning outlets that have reported on it continue to say, and the officials who are investigating say that there's no confirmed political motive. Come on. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Everybody knows what the motive is. Now the assailant, there are some mental health concerns, and is anyone really surprised that there are mental health concerns? I'm not. Apparently, the assailant is also a veteran who suffered from PTSD. That's sad. And it's too bad that he didn't get the treatment that he needed, because now another veteran is dead. But suddenly, because it's a Trump supporter who's dead, the people who are reporting on it want to be cautious and apply nuance to it. But mental illness and nuance doesn't magically erase or negate ideological hatred. I would contend that in a lot of cases, it exacerbates it. Somehow, every other manifestation of mental illness gets this sort of, it gets this nuanced treatment that wouldn't happen if the reverse had taken place. And this is a pattern that we've been seeing. We've been seeing it for years. Remember Kayla Ellingson in North Dakota? Run down by a teenager, run down by, I believe he was 38 years old, because he accused him of being part of an extremist Republican group. Media attention evaporated almost immediately. It was out of the news cycle almost immediately. The congressional baseball shooting, where Steve Scalise almost died. The shooter was rabidly anti-Republican. He was a Bernie supporter, if I remember correctly. That story faded pretty quickly as well. The only thing that kept it in the news as long as it was the fact that Steve Scalise had been so seriously injured. But if it had just been some random dude, that would have been out of the news cycle really, really quick. And I mean, you got the attempted assassinations against Trump, the rally shooting at Butler, the armed guy on the golf course, the other one who was taken out at Mar-a-Lago. These things barely get a mention. Barely get a mention. But let a hateful comment appear on some left-wing blog, and all of a sudden it's a national crisis. all of a sudden we have to have a conversation about LGBTQ sensitivity or whatever the case may be. But the entire American Pravda ecosystem activates, and there's special reports, and America's at a crossroads, and battle for the soul of our country, and corporate statements condemning all this stuff. I mean, the stupid squares on social media for people's profiles, just all of it. But a patriot gets murdered because he's a patriot, and it's crickets. The political value that much of America places on violence, it depends now on who gets hit, depends on who the victims are. If a conservative gets attacked, well, then the conservative obviously deserved it. But if a leftist gets attacked, well, then the country is falling apart, and we have to investigate and have a conversation. Why does one get so much attention and the other get blame? Well, the reason for that is probably the selective outrage that teaches people and teaches kids from a young age these days that certain victims matter and certain victims don't. It tells people that some targets of this violence generate less social consequence, and in some cases even deserve what they got. And it's not whether or not it has nothing really to do with the ideological bent of the victim or the perpetrator, but it's the permission that has the permission structures that have allowed this to fester for years. This didn't start with Trump. This didn't start when he came down the escalator in 2015. This has been going on for as long as I've been paying attention to politics. Conservatives have always been called extremists, have always been called threats to democracy, have always been compared to Nazis and fascists. But they're actually embracing a Senate candidate who is an actual Nazi. Yeah, he had his death heads tattoo covered up, but he covered it up with a Fenris tattoo, which also has white supremacist connotations. Lesser known, obviously, and some people will dispute me on that, and that's fine. But it's out there. And unstable people are going to absorb that messaging, especially if it's something that they've been taught since they've been in school, which we have at least one generation, if not two, that have been taught that since they entered school. And so you spend 2 decades teaching kids that their neighbors are existential threats to their lives, to our way of life. When you do that, you cannot be shocked when violence follows. You're silly if you are shocked when that happens. And we've been conservatives have been sounding this alarm for a long time. And now, with the advent and expansion of social media, more Americans are actually seeing it now. And the imbalance between the two is just too obvious to ignore. Of course, a lot of people are going to put in a lot of work to try and ignore it. But I don't think the left really wants to hide it anymore, honestly. If they wanted to hide it, Graham Plattner would not be the leading Senate candidate in Maine. When you only selectively condemn violence, what you're doing is conditioning yourself to justify more and more of it. That's what's happening right now. And Kerry Sharon paid the price for that. He wasn't the first, and he's not going to be the last, unfortunately. We're going to stick with the left coast for a second. And we've talked about Spencer Pratt. We talked about his viral clips and his ads and stuff like that, but I haven't spent a lot of time. I haven't spent like an actual segment on it, but I'm going to this time, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but we are going to do a fairly full segment on it, because the more I read about this guy and the more I hear his interviews, the more impressed I become, because I knew who he was because he was married to this chick who had a lot of plastic surgery. That was the extent of my knowledge of who Spencer Pratt was. And I had heard he'd been on some reality show, whatever. But the more this has been a very entertaining race for the mayor of LA. And the more I see, not just the ads, but his interviews and the debate and all this other stuff that's going on, in a sane world, he would be running away with this race. It wouldn't even be a question. It would, in a sane world, it would be a foregone conclusion that come November, Spencer Pratt would be the mayor of LA. But Gavin Newsom has already said he's going to basically cheat and make sure that doesn't happen. We'll see. But I saw a story about Spencer Pratt that really grabbed my attention. And then it wasn't, I think, a day after I saw the story that there was he did an interview where he basically corroborated what this story said. And the story might have been about the interview. I can't recall off the top of my head, but Spencer Pratt I think he's running as an independent, but he has identified himself as a Republican. And what got me, what made me take even more notice was his position on gun rights. And he was in an interview and he was asked directly about his position on gun rights. And I'm out of order on this, so give me a second here to pull it up. But he was asked why he was a Republican, and this is his. So let's check this out.
Why are you a Republican?
Well, you want to break some news here?
Sure.
It's in my, I've told this before, and this is the only time I've ever said this, so this is breaking news. Everyone's going to freak out. When I was a hated reality star,
Yeah.
I got so many death threats. I had so much security and police, and what did they tell me to do? Get a gun. This is real. I know people don't like guns, but LA was dangerous if you're hated. So I got a gun. My wife got a gun. And then we needed CCWs. The only people that supported a CCW was the Republican. That was what I aligned with, my safety, my personal safety, my family's safety. I know people don't like guns, but when people are threatening your life and your own security is telling you you need to have home protection, train to, it's not like just I went to the, go through the proper steps. That was my...
It's amazing how when your own safety, when the safety of your family is threatened, all of a sudden, and I don't know what his position was before that, but it's amazing how that can change your perspective on guns. And I mean, he's from California. He's been in the entertainment industry. Stands to reason that he was probably liberal on that, was probably against guns. But who knows? But let's continue, because he says something else here that I do have a bit of an issue with. But let's go ahead.
That's it.
And
Period.
that was it. And you
That's
felt
it.
like that party was more pro Second Amendment.
And I know that's a very hot button, but here's the thing. I'm also going to be the mayor that puts LAPD in front of every school to make schools safe from guns. Right now we
Enough
have...
officers to do that?
I talked to a very knowledgeable law enforcement. All you have to do is pick one patrol unit and you give them a nice pin.
And he goes on to talk about that, and that's a little iffy for me. I'm not sure how I feel about that, and he hasn't elaborated much on that since. So I'm not sure what the actual plan is for that. But that's a little problematic. But he's coming at it from the basic premise that I support, which is my safety was threatened. I have a right to defend myself, and I'm going to exercise that right. And I think that if he's able, if he actually does win, and he's actually able to implement any of the things that he's talked about in terms of cleaning up the city and making it safer, that will mitigate a lot of the issues that we're seeing at these schools anyway. But getting back to the actual issue at hand, he said that death threats during his peak celebrity was what changed his view on guns. This was not something where this is not a culture war thing. This was his take on survival and self-defense. And that kind of thing is happening all over the country. The crime and instability that we see in places like LA and Chicago and New York, that creates the environment that makes people migrate their political affiliations. The best way to red pill a leftist is to give them what they ask for. And Mamdani, he could red pill even some of the most hardcore leftists in New York if they don't convert to Islam. But that's a whole other story. But people who mock gun owners suddenly want guns when their safety and security is threatened. They live in gated communities, they have private security, but they want to be able to defend themselves just like anyone else. And Spencer Pratt saying this out loud kind of, and he's probably already been ousted from polite society, polite leftist society out there. But Spencer Pratt saying that he decided to get a gun because of that. And this must have taken place before, and I don't know how long ago The Hills was. I don't know how long ago his peak celebrity was, but it obviously had to have taken place before the Supreme Court struck down their May issue, the May issue gun laws, because in California, he and his wife were able to get CCWs. And the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department, they had permit schemes that you had to prove that you had a justifiable need for a concealed carry permit, just like New York. And New York it was struck down there too. It was struck down nationwide, but New York is still figuring out ways to get around that. But his obvious frustration is palpable. The government, and I say this all the time, the government cannot guarantee your safety. And when the government, when they tell you that they want to guarantee your safety, when they tell you that that you don't need a gun for it to protect yourself, and then they see all this madness that's taking place, people start rethinking their assumptions. People start rethinking their priorities when it comes to taking care of their own safety and security. And that ties into everything else that he's talking about when it comes to the city's collapse. Because the city, let's put it this way. If the city has to endure 4 more years of Karen Bass's leadership, LA is toast. LA is gone. And short of divine intervention, there won't be any coming back from it. And that's why this story was, well, not story, but this is another one of his viral moments during this campaign that was just brilliant. His entire campaign has been a masterclass, and not just these clips on social media, but the way he's handled himself in interviews as well has been a masterclass in campaigning. Let's let's take a look at this one, because this one was outstanding. That said, imagine if the streets were this clean. And that was him actually with the power washer stenciling this into the street. I mean, that highlights the contrast between him and Karen Bass, as well as anything he's done. And he's done a lot to show that. But it's just been, like I said, it's been a masterclass. He's literally cleaning the sidewalks. And it just shows the public decay that is so prevalent in LA that nobody seems to really care about. And I've seen people talk about how Spencer Pratt is, they call him all kinds of names and said that he has no compassion, but where is the compassion for the citizens who are actually productive members of society who have to deal with this madness? Where's the compassion for them? The city is falling apart right in front of them, and people want to talk about democracy. This clip right here is one that people have taken issue with Spencer Pratt. I'm not going to play the whole thing. The whole thing is 3 minutes, but we're going to get about a minute of it in and talk about it before we move on.
What are your plans for the over 40,000 homeless in Los Angeles?
Yeah, well, they're not homeless. They're drug addicts. Most of these people are addicted to fentanyl and meth. This isn't Spencer making it up.
Are you saying they don't have homes?
There is places for all of these people to sleep in LA. No matter what anybody tells you, we have housing and shelter for everyone that's living on the street. They're choosing to be on the street because they want to do drugs. They don't want rules. They don't want to listen. They want to have animals to abuse. This idea that they're forced on the street right now is a lie that our city is perpetuating. We've paid $24 billion to house these 40,000 people. There's spots for all of these people. They are choosing because they're an addict, and you can do fentanyl and sewer meth on the sidewalk with no repercussions. These places are not as, they have to follow some rules. You can't torture a dog in some of these houses. You can't just attack people. You can't just be naked.
Where are you going to move?
Well, I just released a 9-minute video, so you can.
I think I saw your video.
Yeah, so it's very detailed.
But it's going to take time to build the facility and money.
No.
How fast do you think you can do it?
These people can literally. I went to Washington and I saw miles of the most insane prefabricated housing and building. I asked all the CEOs of these companies, I said, how long does this take? I met with FEMA and HUD. 3 days. 3 days, and all of this is cheaper than trying to take over, kick senior citizens out of their buildings. This is what happens. They kick them out, and then the NGOs come in, and they spend 4 years. This is LA. This is LA's timetable.
Where is this facility going to be?
It's on beautiful federal land property.
Where, in LA County?
Well, when I'm mayor, I'll go meet with the federal government, and I'll get the property. Right now, I'm just running, so I can't give you the exact address because I don't have the legal responsibility to go represent Los Angeles and say, can I have this land? But when I'm mayor, I promise you, because we have the Olympics coming and everybody in the government wants LA to be the #1 most beautiful city, they will work with me to.
I mean, his answer couldn't get any better than that. Couldn't get any better than that. And the fact that he is resonating with this message tells you everything you need to know about how bad it has gotten. Tells you everything about how bad it's gotten. And when he's out there power washing sidewalks and it's having more of an impact than the current leadership, that says a lot. That says a lot. He's tapping into the exhaustion that people are feeling between the homelessness and the crime and the visible disorder, the fire response failures that prompted him to get into this race. He has become a symbol of the frustration that a lot of people in LA feel, but we're being told, as they often are, not to believe their lying eyes. And that if you have any criticism of it, then you're a bigot. And he's just saying no. He's saying enough is enough. And he's resonating with people who agree with that. And these Hollywood types out there who are saying that they only trust career politicians, and or somebody else, I forget who it was, who knows him, said that they were an actor like him and they wouldn't trust themselves as mayor, so they wouldn't trust him. It's like, have you paid attention to anything besides these viral clips? Have you actually watched an interview that he's done? Have you actually watched the statements that he's put out? He talked about that 9-minute video. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched most of it. And it like I said, it was very detailed, and he knows what he's talking about. And he never falls for the gotcha questions in these interviews. He's always got an answer. And it's not like the political animal answer that you get from career politicians. This guy absolutely gets it. And he's part of, I think, a group of people like Trump, like Milei, like Bukele in El Salvador, and some of the other European insurgents that are making headway over in Europe. I think he's in that mold. And I think he should, I don't know if he will, circumstances may be just too much, but he should be the next mayor of LA. And he's resonating. He's resonating like few politicians do. And who he is not the issue. The fact that he's a former reality star is not an issue. The story is that he's resonating and people are understanding why. And people who vote for Karen Bass or the other one, Nithya Raman, people who vote for that, either they're not paying attention or they're like Magic Johnson and don't actually live in or spend much time in LA where all of the chaos is taking place. They're just paying attention to the fact that Karen Bass is is Black and is a career politician. Despite the fact that her performance has been abysmal. And there's some other words I could use for that, but I will try to keep it clean. All right, we got about 20 minutes left, and I want to talk about this too, because this story just shows how the left is constantly just eating itself. They built an identity around identity politics, and they've spent years telling us that representation matters more than pretty much anything. You hear all the time, I was just so glad to see somebody who looks like me representing me. Well, I mean, that's just stupid. But now in Florida, they're finding out, well, all over the country really, but this story comes out of Florida, where they're finding out that everybody defines representation differently. Debbie Wasserman Schultz had her district, she was drawn out of her district. And she has declared that she is going to run in a majority Black district. And now all of a sudden, despite the fact that she's a Democrat, now all of a sudden it's a civil war within the Democrat Party. They have been preaching race-first politics for at least a decade, if not longer. And now that those districts have been redrawn so that they can't use race as criteria for drawing these districts, now they're all upset that a white woman is encroaching on their territory. They built this system where race determines legitimacy. Race determines everything for a lot of these people, but now they're fighting over the right to represent them. Identity politics always works right up until the coalition decides to eat itself. The redistricting in Florida reshuffled the map and started a political firestorm. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as I said, is trying to run in an all-Black district. And her announcement was hilarious because she announced that she's running in an all-Black district. And we'll just take a look at it, and then we'll talk about it. Because this was pandering to the extreme.
Broward County my whole adult life. You've always been able to count on me to deliver results for our community.
Debbie knows how to deliver results.
If you know Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you know that Debbie does not back down from a fight.
She is a person that is for all people.
Debbie's always been there to fight for us, to stand up against all forms of hate, and make sure we're best represented in Congress.
And I waged these battles when our values were on the line.
She's got this picture of Obama in the background of her announcement. That is about as it doesn't get any more obvious pandering than that. I mean, it's comical, absolutely comical. But despite that, despite the Obama poster in her background, A lot of Black Democrat leaders are upset. The Florida Legislative Black Caucus has condemned her move. Black people who are also trying to run, like Elijah Manley, they're upset. And when I heard the name of this other candidate who's in the race against her, I was like, that name sounds awfully familiar. And then I realized Luther Campbell is running in this district. My Gen X peeps know who this is, or at least once I can't even really name any songs because they're so vulgar, but he is Uncle Luke from 2 Live Crew. And my Gen X peeps know exactly why I can't say most of the songs that he has, the most popular ones anyway. But if that's the representation that you're wanting, you probably want to aim a little higher. And I'm not saying that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is that. I'm not saying that at all. But this is the bed that you made. Now it's time to lie in it. She has every right to run in this district, apparently. And the other side is saying that this has to be represented by a Black person. Would they be saying that if there was a good chance that a Black Republican could represent this district? And of course, the answer to that would be absolutely not. They don't want the best candidate. They don't want the best ideas. They don't want the best policies. They want the best color. What they perceive as the best color. They spent years talking about how colorblind politics is outdated. They said demographics are destiny. Representation must mirror the identity of the people who are being represented. Lived experience outweighs everything. And now those rules are blowing up in their own coalition. And it's glorious to watch, honestly. They're saying that white people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who are trying to represent these minority districts, are colonizing these minority seats. I mean, this is ridiculous. It really is. This is our seat, our representation, our district. It's tribal politics. They've been telling us for years that America is systemically racist. And now they're running a political system entirely organized around race. Everything, I say this all the time, everything about them is completely incoherent. Completely incoherent. Because how can you say that the country is systemically racist and then have your entire have your entire apparatus built around race. But yet that's what they do. And they expect us not to notice. They expect us to just shrug and keep it moving. Yeah. It's it's really fascinating to watch the mental gymnastics that these people go through. And it's fascinating, and it's also amusing, because you can see that and I've said this before, but in a sane world, with all things being equal, there is absolutely no way they could possibly win an election. None. They have no ideas. They have no coherent policies. They have absolutely nothing to offer other than the other side is bad. Other than the other side is racist. And we're not. Even though we wanted to draw all of our districts based on race, but details. And I've said this before as well. The mask isn't slipping. They've completely discarded it. They've completely discarded it, and the system is finally behaving exactly the way it's been designed. Well, I just saw this orange notice pop up in the chat. Wendy, thank you very much for the super chat, $20. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. That is awesome. That is the first super chat that we've gotten here on the Mission Ready Men briefing. So once again, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And looks like I missed quite a bit here in the chat. But that orange super chat caught my eye. So thank you. Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate that. All right. I wanted to mention one quick thing before we get you out of here. Zohran Mamdani, the Muslim Islamic jihadist mayor of New York. He has put forth a plan to basically, let me get her off the screen. Sorry about that. To seize property. And I had that pulled up. And I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get into it a lot more, but he says that they are now going to start the process of implementing a citywide campaign to take buildings from landlords in New York City and remove them, like just seize the property from them, and then turn it over to, what was the term he used? He wants to fast track construction of low-income housing and turn this property over to trusts that will basically ensure that those, what they deem irresponsible owners lose their property. That sounds an awful lot like communism. But it stands to reason because Mamdani is a communist. And we're going to get into that story a little bit deeper. But it just came out just before, or I just noticed it just before we went to stream today's show. But that is going to do it for today's show. I am Big E, and you have been watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch a bunch of great shows. My good friend, Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. He is off this week, dealing with some family stuff, so he will not be on this week, but you can usually catch him, like I said, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. And Lyle Armstrong with Beer and Bullstein every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Please like and subscribe to those great shows. Share the channel, and pray that we continue to push through. Also, don't forget, if you haven't already, on the Mission Ready Men Briefing YouTube channel, our individual channel, we were at 996 subscribers when we started. I hope that we have actually broken through to 1,000. That would be awesome if we could do that. If you haven't subscribed over there, please do so. That would be amazing. But anyway, that's going to do it, folks. We're not here to just talk into the ether. We're here to equip Christian men, spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. And if anything that we said here today matters, don't just watch it, but share it. Share it with another man and bring him into the fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, hit Shop 7 Armors, and check out all of the great designs we have there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the SHR shop, 25% off all merchandise with SHR 25, and check out all of those designs as well. And remember, folks, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.